part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hi, everybody. It's John Tellage from the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast. Be sure to hop on with us to follow all the dramatic developments of the reigning American League Central Division champions. From game analysis to interviews to keeping tabs on who could be the next breakout star. We'll have that and much, much more right here. It's the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe here and join the fun.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
That sound means it's time for Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. What's good, Breakers? We are part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I am your host, Chase Smith, and with me, he's the NBA writer and owner of HoopsWire.com. He's our Cavs insider, national NBA writer, Sam Amico. Sam, it is great to be talking with you Cavs basketball once again.
Here we are, March Madness, NBA style, right?
It's right.
Our first podcast in March.
Cavs have 15 games left on this last bit of the season stretch here. And here to help us talk about these last few games, he reports sports at Fox 8. He's the host of the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. He also is the co-host of Cavs on the Break, John Sabol. John, we were just talking pre-show. Thank you for hosting us at our live show in your immaculate basement at our last episode, John. It was an incredible time. Thank you.
Hey, man, it was awesome having you two and Jeremy there. Was a lot of fun, good times, good stories, good pod, good conversation. And unfortunately, the Cavs lost that game against the Nuggets.
That's right.
But we'll have to do it again, especially when the weather warms up here, and maybe do a whole day of it with some golf and then some potting after that.
We will have to do it again because, John, I have to admit, I accidentally stole your Junkyard Dog Award.
Yeah.
I thought it was mine. I brought mine, and I saw it on the table the next morning. I thought it was mine, put it in my bag, and next thing you know, I have two. So
you have two Junkyard Dog Awards right now.
I do. But I did the whole reverse. I left something in your apartment thing. And
you
just
did,
because I want to go back.
It hook, line, and sinker, man. You're coming back.
All right. Jeremy is unfortunately not going to be able to be with us tonight, but shouts to Zach for checking this pod out. Zach, I'm sure, is still listening to Cavs on the Break. Zach, you know who you are, man. Always great to give you a shout. Hey, let's talk about this because Cavs post All-Star break, guys. Is it cause for concern? We have beat the Pistons and we just beat the Celtics in overtime on Monday, but they haven't really been playing super well. I feel like they've kind of been a little slow out of the gate here. Sam, are you concerned about just like the Cavs in general right now, or is this just part of them getting their sea legs back?
I think it's more of the latter. Not too much concern. The big concern, and I think is evident to everybody, and everybody's talking about it, is just the inconsistency and lack of production overall from the bench. The good news is, you saw Lamar Stevens come in and against the Celtics and offer a spark, but they just haven't been getting consistent play from the bench. And that would probably be something that would be, a concern in the playoffs, because then you're kind of running your starters and Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland and Mobley and Jared Allen, especially, starting to look a little bit tired to me lately. You're kind of running those guys into the ground, playing big minutes as they fight for playoff position. So, I wouldn't be concerned overall, though. I don't think anybody's going to catch them at 4, number 4 seed in the East. So, the Cavs are about right where they thought they would be.
Yeah. John, are you concerned about how the Cavs are playing after the All-Star break?
No, I think the issues that I'm concerned with is they have hard time beating teams that are better than they are. I guess it's really not a concern. It's kind of expected when you think of how young and inexperienced they are. But you'd like to see them come out with a little bit more fire. You'd like to see them come out with a little more consistent play. Third quarters have doomed them. You could look at Philadelphia right before the break, Boston last week. And then, of course, they won last night as we record this here on March 7th on Tuesday in that crazy game against Boston. But, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just the inexperience or if JB's message isn't getting clear to them, or if it's just, kind of buckling under some pressure. I don't know what it would be. But the concern is you've got to beat these better teams. And, they've done that with Boston. They won those 2 games earlier in the year, but that was early in the year. That doesn't really count in my opinion. But, it's a growing pains. We've alluded to that many, many times, and we'll see what they can go forward here with the last remaining games, because their schedule does get really light. They have one of the easier schedules left in the league. So that's just something to keep your eyes on. I still think the step that we all or fans expect, maybe not we, because Sam and I are kind of on the same page with this. Chase, I think you are too a little bit. The step that we as Cavs fans expect to take is not this year. That should be next year.
Yeah. So wait, Danny Green didn't solve our Cavs bench problems. I thought he was the answer to all of our concerns.
I don't think they brought him here for that. I think they brought him in to kind of hit some threes, but
okay.
We kind of knew too, Chase, with Ricky Rubio, when he's his age, a guard in his 30s who's coming off a major knee injury. I didn't expect him to be at what he was last season, but I thought that he might be able to give them a little bit more than he's giving them. And that's not a knock on him. That's just reality of the situation. Coming off major knee surgery, just really hasn't found his groove and lifted them in a reserve role, I think, as they had hoped and he had hoped. And maybe that can still happen. But to me, that's kind of the one area that they had their hopes up about, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm trashing Ricky Rubio, because I'm not, but he just hasn't delivered and been able to deliver physically like they had hoped at this point.
Oh, I'm gonna cut this out and say Amico trashes Rubio. Just you wait, Sam.
I have no doubt that you would do that too.
I would never. Sabol, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, you got to wonder where he's at, though, in terms of how healthy that knee is. He's not obviously at 100%. His age, multiple injuries. I don't know if we'll get to see the Ricky Rubio of last year, the same guy that averaged 13 points a game. If we do see him, it may not be till next season, if at all. But I'm with Sam on that part. The bench is a glaring problem. And, Lamar Stevens single-handedly won that game against Boston last night. And you're not going to get those kind of efforts from him at a consistent clip. And you're not getting it from Chetty or LeVert or Wade. The bench is a huge concern. It's a problem. I guess that would be the other concern I would have. So there's a big hole there. I think it's still enough to get by the first round, especially if you play the Knicks. But I think the biggest thing is what you can do next year. But let's not talk about next year, and let's not talk about some of those issues, because I think as fans and as guys that cover the team like we do, I think you got to embrace the success and the fun that they're having this year.
Totally.
Because this is just an incredible season, and incredible talent. And this ceiling is high and the window is wide open.
So let's enjoy it. So let's say the Cavs have won 3 of 4 against the Celtics this season, right? Like, why can't we enjoy that? Why do the first 2 not have to count, John? You were just saying we need to enjoy it, but.
Well, we need to enjoy the totality of the whole season and what they're doing in the special season with Donovan Mitchell and his career year with his first season with his new team.
Breaking and then being the single season record for threes in a year. Yeah.
Well, he's currently tied with J.R. Smith.
2 of 4. That's right.
He'll break that coming up here. The next game coming up here. What is that, tomorrow?
Yeah.
In Miami. But, I don't think that really counts, because that was the first, week of the season, and everyone's kind of getting their legs under them a little bit, and they're kind of getting in the motion. So, that Boston team was not the same Boston team on October 28th or November 2nd when the Cavs both games, both wins came in overtime. And then I'm not going to be a Debbie Downer here, but you could argue that game on Monday and another overtime win should never have been that close when they've missed 3 of their best players weren't playing. And they were coming off of an overtime game against New York the night before in Boston, had to fly in Cleveland. I mean, the Cavs should have won that game on paper, and they really still should have lost that game if, what if Grant Williams missed those 2 free throws.
Yeah.
So, I don't think those count because it's a completely different, season, and that was so long ago.
Sure.
And, the Cavs kind of start off really hot, and then they've tailed down a little bit ever since December and cooled off and been inconsistent, into the new year. But still, it's still great to see that they've won 3 of 4 against Boston, but in grand scheme of things, it doesn't really mean anything.
You texted the group chat who was out that game, and I just responded with a W. I was like, that's just W. It's a W. And then to see they were down, I was like, eesh, like we are really, struggling. So here's where we're at, Sam. Here's where we're at.
And to be fair, Chase, Boston shot the hell out of the ball in that first half. They were due to cool. Those legs finally caught up to them, to be fair.
Yeah. The Cavs, have you mentioned, Sam, they are firmly the 4th seed in the East. 1.5 game lead over the surging Knicks, who lost tonight, by the way. The Cavs, let's enjoy this. The Cavs are 41-26. That looks like an awesome record. It's one of those kind of like different differentials that looks larger than it might be. Like you're playing basketball and it's like, whoa, 31-19. That's like a huge lead. Well, really, that's just like what, like 12 points. It's not really that large, but it looks large. And when you put it against the rest of the East, we are 4th in the East, kind of anchoring onto that home court advantage, Sam, which is going to be huge for the Cavs. How do you feel about them keeping the 4? You felt pretty good. I mean, just a few moments ago, you feel like they're going to hold on to that 4th seed?
Yeah, that hasn't changed. I would say, I think that they're going to hold on the 4th seed. I think the Knicks kind of, they went on that, 9-game winning streak before losing to the Hornets.
Yes.
Tonight. And I just kind of felt like, as somebody, the Cavs don't need to worry about the Knicks. I think that they would be more concerned with the Heat or the or the Hawks if they get their act together. I think the Knicks are probably going to finish with that 5th seed. So that to me would be the Cavs' first round opponent. I don't think they'll pass the Cavs for 4. And I just think that, the best thing that happened to a lot of the teams in the East was Kyrie and Durant.
The Nets imploding.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, I don't know if I said it on the podcast. I'm sure I said it to you guys off that, when the Nets were playing really well at one point, December and January, and I said, how long is it going to last though? And I kind of thought, well, maybe this is the year that the Nets finally have their act together. Yeah. Well, sure enough, it all falls apart. And that benefits the Cavs because then they avoid them in the first round. And I think the Cavs are a better team than any team beneath them right now. It's not like a Nets team last year that was probably better than the Cavs, even though they finished with a lower seed. I think that this year it's pretty clear cut that the Cavs are the 4th best team. And even without great bench play, or without some consistency from game to game from the entire team, they're still the 4th best team in the East, right?
Which checks out because they have probably the 4th best player in the East, right? You have Giannis on the Bucks, Tatum on the Celtics, Embiid on the 76ers, and Spider here on the Cavs. And so I like that as well. We have the Knicks at 5. The Nets right now are at 6. But they're only, 5-6 games up on the 10th seed Wizards. And, I mentioned on the pod previously, I don't know if the Nets are going to make the play-in game. I would not be shocked if they just continue to fall. The Nets are 4-6 in the last 10 games. They have won 3 straight, but I think you look at the teams below them. You have the Heat, the Hawks, the Raptors, and the Wizards, and then the Bulls and the Pacers are right there knocking. I think it's totally feasible for the Nets to completely drop out of the playoffs and, dare I say, into the lottery. I know they got 37 wins, so that's quite a lot, but any chance you
Who's
have
better right now? Who's better right now, the Nets or the Wizards? Who's a better team?
I would say the
think
Nets.
The Wizards.
Yeah, I think it's a toss-up. You guys both gave a different answer, but yeah.
Yep. I don't know.
Well, when you think of the Knicks, I think the Knicks' recent surge, winning of 9 of the last 10, is just a little misleading in a way because of, they went on a hell of a tear, but they beat up on some teams there. Surprisingly, they beat Boston twice, which is shocking, but then they lost to Philly in that stretch before. But you beat up Brooklyn twice. You beat up New Orleans and Washington and Atlanta. So those wins, with the exception of the 2 Boston wins, they had a relatively easy schedule. And they played Miami too. But the funny thing is about New York, guys, their last 15 remaining games aren't really easy. They go on a tough 4-game road trip now. Sacramento, both LA teams, in Portland. And then they have Denver coming up. So that's at home. So their next 5 games are against, some tough opponents in terms of what they can do, especially 4 of those on the road, West Coast style. So, if you're going to see their true colors shine, it should be coming up here in the next week and a half to see, how really, good and experienced they are, because that could be a decent barometer to see how the Cavs can fare against them during the postseason, if at all. Other than that, I mean, I know I just said it a second ago, but the Cavs have actually the easiest remaining schedule based off of wins and losses in the entire NBA.
Yeah, I have it here in front of me. Let's go over that. So the rest of the week 21 slate, we have a back-to-back in Miami, which doesn't seem like the easiest schedule. But we have, when you're listening to this, you're listening to this on a Wednesday. So tonight, 7:30, the Kevin Love revenge game in Miami. Tip off 7:30. And then on Thursday, the very next day, tomorrow, again in Miami, second game of back-to-back. Got to watch out for that Miami flu that kind of happens every now and then down there in Miami. Then we have a couple of days off. Then we go to Charlotte. Surprisingly frisky Hornets all of a sudden, 5 p.m. tip in Charlotte. But then we have Hornets away, 76ers home, ESPN, Wizards home, Nets away, Rockets home, Hawks away, Knicks at home, Friday, March 31st, which could be huge for playoff. It could really just seal the 4th seed there. Pacers home, Magic away, Hornets home Sunday, April 9th. And that's a lot of lottery teams right there that are really going to be trying to lose to get better chances to get Wembanyama. So that's, it would have to take a monumental collapse for the Cavs not to get the 4th seed in the playoffs is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, that's a whole combined average of 455 winning percentage, by far the easiest remaining in the league with 15 games. There are some teams that still have 19, 17 games left, 18 games left. But here, it's funny you mentioned the Wembanyama sweepstakes. If you really look at where it looks right now in the league, in terms of the bottom teams that could be in the running, you're looking at Detroit, Houston, and San Antonio. And I guess Charlotte a little bit there, if they fizzle, they could be tied in that bottom 4. So if you're looking at a spot where could go, looking draft talk, that's where he could go.
Yep.
The thing that cracks me up is that the Spurs lost 16 straight at one point. We're still a game or 2 better than the Rockets, even after that losing streak.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So that is a very favorable schedule for the Cavs. And is it possible that the Cavs get the 3 seed? I mean, let's look at the different side here. You start looking at like higher seeding and who you'd rather play. I want to talk about that at the break. Well, actually, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about maybe playoff seedings, our toughest out, easiest team to play to advance, and the most important piece on the Cavs. Stick with us, Cavs on the break. NBA podcast right here in the Press Play Podcast Network. We'll be right back.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tybus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tyvis, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sabol.
And I'm Scott Sabol, and we're hosts of the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it, Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
Hey, everybody. I'm Gary.
And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
All right, we are back. I'm talking Cavs playoffs with Sam Amico and John Sabol. We just went over the kind of the Cavs remaining schedule. I want to look at if we go on a run, and let's say we win 10 of the last 15, and we become the 3 seed. All of a sudden, we start looking at, well, man, then we avoid, the Bucks, or do we want to avoid the Bucks? Like, which of the top 3 teams would you rather play in the second round of the playoffs? And so let's say we advance, and we're going to talk about that first round matchup here in a moment. But of those top 3 teams, Bucks, Celtics, 76ers, Sam, which of those 3 teams would you rather play to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals?
If I'm the Cavaliers, I think the answer would be the Celtics, because you've shown, and John's right. Those games are early in the season. But even in Boston, they've only played really one bad quarter against Boston. It was that third quarter against the Celtics last weekend. And otherwise, they were right there with them in Boston, beat them in Boston. In overtime, and that's the funny thing. All 3 wins against the Celtics have come in overtime, but I just think that they match up better with Boston than they do against the Sixers or the Bucks, especially on the road. Milwaukee's, to me, I know Boston went to the finals last year and has been leading the East most of the year, but I think Milwaukee at this point at least is deeper. Best player in the conference, and it's just going to be, to me, they're the favorites to come out of the East right now, just barely, but barely the favorites over the Boston. I just think the Cavs, of those 3 teams, have this season have had the most success against the Celtics and just match up best with them. Not to mention the fact that, come playoff time, you would think that Boston having a first-year coach, and I know they did last year, but just a younger coach, the youngest coach in the NBA, that might work to your advantage too. If you're the Cavs looking for an upset,
the Celtics would have been my last answer. That's the team I would rather play the Bucks for the Celtics. John, what team would you think would give what team, if you're the Cavs, would you rather play to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals?
It's out of the Bucks, Sixers, Celtics.
Yeah,
man, it's tough for me because of one thing. Philly scares me because Joel Embiid owns Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. We cannot defend him. We are not tough enough. So it's not Philly, in my opinion.
That'd be my pick.
And
give me Philly.
Milwaukee with Giannis, they're playing great ball right now. I mean, I'm with Sam. I think they're just too tough, and you got no one that can guard them. And you've already beaten Boston 3 times, even though those 2 games earlier in the year didn't count. You kind of already know their DNA, even with Tatum not playing this last game. If I had to pick between the 3, I'd pick Boston. That would be the one I want to play, only because you've seen them 4 times already, and you've already beat them 3 times. You kind of know you've got some confidence there. And, if you can get Allen and Mobley in the interior, I think they just outmatch them inside a little bit better, even though it's kind of interesting. We haven't talked about it. We may, about Jared Allen not playing much last night. I think the Cavs has had a better shot against Boston than the other teams. You're talking about jumping the seeds in the standings, Chase. It's hard to really visualize that happening because so many things need to happen. But to your point, if you look at the strength of schedule, Philadelphia has the 5th hardest remaining schedule with 2 more games to play versus the Cavs with 17 games.
I don't think it's out of their own possibility. And
I don't think it is. I don't think it's not impossible. It's just not likely with Cleveland now 3 games behind Philly. It would be great to see it happen. But you got to start making that move now. And you got this baseball back-to-back with Miami and then Charlotte, because the NBA did that scheduling tweak where they do these baseball series where they're playing the same team twice, So if you split in Miami and then you beat Charlotte, guess who you play next? Philly at home, March 15th.
So here's why you both are wrong. Here's why I'm glad I'm here to talk sense into you guys. We're talking about playoff matchups. You guys can't see us. Sam just rolled his eyes and smacked his mouth like an old man getting coffee at McDonald's. Like I'm a young whippersnapper coming in, trying to tell her what to do. No one can see that except for me. And he looks so disappointed in me right now. Here's why the Cavs need to play the 76ers in the playoffs, because we know who the 76ers are. Joel Embiid is playing. He can't play any better than he is right now. He can't. He is.
I disagree. I think he could play even better and manhandle Mobley and Allen. And the Cavs have no stop for him. They struggle against him.
No.
Let me hear Chase while I drink my McDonald's coffee, which I get for free by the way now at select locations. But go ahead.
Joel Embiid is playing, I think, the best he can play. We know who the 76ers are. I don't think there is another level the 76ers can play. This is it. This is who they are. You know who can play at a higher level? The Celtics. You know who is going to be hungry because they think that they, were embarrassed in the finals and it's my league, it's my time, I'm Jason Tatum, blah, 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 blah. Is the Celtics. You know who also is like, we didn't make the finals last year. It's time to show everyone that I'm still the best player in the East. Giannis. I don't think because of our regular season success, that means anything for the Cavs against the Celtics in the playoffs. If anything, it is would we get swept? I don't know. We might be swept by the Celtics if we play the Celtics round 2. Giannis is the best player in the East. I don't want to play them. And I think the 76ers are playing the best that they're going to play, and give me that and Doc Rivers in the playoffs over what our other options are. That's the poison I'm drinking, is peak Embiid and Doc Rivers in the playoffs. We played terrible against the 76ers before the All-Star break. It's like the worst game we played all season. I think they're anxiously looking forward to this, ESPN game again against the 76ers. And I would be shocked if we lose that game. I think that's a big game for the Cavs. And I don't know. Give me the 76ers in the playoffs, and I think we have a shot.
Well, I would say, Chase, that to me, Milwaukee has the deepest team in the league. One of the reasons I would pick Boston over the Sixers, and like I said, it wouldn't be by much, but Boston's bench is very unpredictable. There, guys like Sam Hauser and Blake Griffin and Peyton Pritchard. Brogdon's pretty steady. I'll give him that. I mean, he's pretty good, pretty underrated, pretty steady.
Agreed.
But I just think that their bench is pretty unpredictable, and so are some of their other starters. That said, I mean, there's really no boy, we got the matchup we wanted with any of those three teams.
Sure.
I will say this about Philly, to your point, they're not real strong when it comes to depth.
Nope.
And whenever I think about the Cavs, I think I don't really think so much in terms of starters as much as, okay, how is our bench going to fare against them? Because really, if you look in playoff series, you get what you get from your stars. You're always going to get that. It's the bench guys that, you need somebody unsung to step up. And that's usually how a playoff series is often determined, whose role players play better, because the stars are going to play great anyway. So,
well, in the bench
either
of the
way,
playoffs, of the playoffs only rotate maybe 2 or 3 guys. It gets really small.
Yes. Yeah, it gets about 8 guys, right? And for some of those guys, but you got to factor in injuries. Maybe the bench comes into play in that way. But for the Cavs, I mean, to me, based on our discussion earlier, it's just been fantastic. The type of season they've had, the fact that they went from a team that got bounced in the play-in tournament to a team now that's a top 4 seed, and we're talking about who they're going to play in the second round. To me, that's just they're exactly where they'd hoped to be. They didn't expect to be better than Milwaukee or Boston or Philly this year, and they were going to go for that 4th seed. They probably didn't expect to be better than the Nets if the Nets pulled it together. So the fact that they're where they are has really, should serve them well for next season when they should take a bigger step.
It's funny, Sam. You go back, and we've talked about this before, how Kobe Altman set that tone back on Media Day, where he didn't put a ceiling on this team this year, expectations, and didn't say it's playoffs or bust, or it's Eastern Conference Finals and bust. And I had a couple friends of mine who listen to the podcast who kind of reject that notion that just like media PR stuff that the Cavs are saying, blah, 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 blah. And even though there are other people in the league that have said the same thing about the Cavs, it wasn't media PR BS. That's what they're saying, because this is a young, unproven team with a superstar in Donovan Mitchell playing in his first year there. So naturally you're thinking, oh, the Cavs should be so good and they should go this far and blah, 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 blah. The point of Kobe Altman saying that is, back then, put no pressure on his young players, because this is one of the youngest teams in the league with no experience. And so anything positive from the first game in October to now, and continuing to grow in the standings, grow in your experience as a player, as a team, chemistry, yada, 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 was just a bonus. And so, yeah, the Cavs would love to go to the playoffs, and they will. Yeah, they want to win a series, and they could, and they want to go far. But it wasn't just lip service that Kobe Altman said back then. The Cavs truly believe that, even though they want more, but not putting pressure on themselves back in October with the move of Donovan Mitchell and going in year 2 of Evan Mobley and 3 of Darius Garland and having all these guys together, I think is actually helping them more than not. And that the big jump that fans really want to see is next year, when the Cavs will have money off the books with Kevin Love's contract gone. Karis LeVert's option, if they don't re-sign him, which they may or may not, you still have the mid-level exception. They can be active on the trade front. I guess what I'm saying is Kobe set this mindset early. They've embraced it, and it goes back to our original point of just enjoying this incredible fun ride.
Currently, Embiid is third in the league in usage rate at 36.9%, almost at 37%. Giannis at 37.5, and Luka at 37.3.
Chase, how do you not see that that Joel Embiid just destroys the Cavs every time you play them?
I'm not saying he doesn't destroy them. I'm saying this is there's not another level to his destroying. It's just he's going to produce, but that's it. There's another level that Tatum and Giannis can do to us that we haven't seen yet.
Can we get through the rest of the regular season first before you Chase gets all fired up about the Sixers?
Well, let's do this. Let's do this. Which is the hardest, the toughest out of the first round? Can we talk about that? Because we talk about the easiest team to advance, the toughest out of the first round between the Knicks, the Net. Well, I don't want to count the Nets. The Knicks, the Heat, the Hawks, the Raps, and the Wizards, and the Wizards. Which of those 5 teams would give us the toughest out and maybe even bounce us from the first round of the playoffs?
I think it's Miami. I want no part of the Heat whatsoever. Jimmy buckets and the bench of Bam and Tyler, or not bench, but other starters, Tyler Hero, those guys. They can get hot and streaky. I know they were playing inconsistent this year. They were injured early on. I'm not just saying that because of Kevin Love. Kevin Love doesn't scare me by any means, but I think you do have some experience there in some potent offensive skilled players there that could really, hurt the Cavaliers. Knicks and Nets don't scare me whatsoever. Hawks don't either. And, the Wizards and Raptors, even if they somehow fall up, and get hot, there's no one there that potentially throws any danger.
My only concern with the Raptors is that one of our players would get injured because they're dirty and they would just try to injure us because that's how they are. Sam, John, I agree with you, by the way. I'm right there with you. Sam, which of those teams would you rather not play in the first round?
Without question, Miami. Just because they're a veteran team. They've got a lot of playoff experience there, a lot of big game experience. We saw when they played the Cavs in Cleveland recently that they play playoff style basketball all year. And I know they've been inconsistent, but they're just the kind of team that can get their act together at the right time. Very well coached with Eric Spoelstra, a guy who has been there forever. That would be the team I would not want to face. That's why I'm if the Cavs, it might be better if they don't climb to 3 and stay at 4, because then maybe you avoid Miami in the first round. Maybe Miami stays at 6. You climb to 3, you got them in the first round. But that would be the team that would probably be the most fearful. And I'm in total agreement with John. After that, it's probably the Hawks and the Raptors. If the Raptors get their act together, the Raptors probably second to me to Miami, because they've played the Cavs very well, throughout the season, and they are a very physical team and another team that's very well coached and just has a lot of athleticism. But I don't know that they'll get that far. The Hawks to me are going to be interesting to see how they close out the season under Quinn Snyder. It seems to me that they're probably going to get their act together here on a regular basis. And I think the Cavs will avoid them in the first round, but they're a team that if they pull it together, they've got some ability and got some depth. But I really, maybe foolishly so, I don't think that the Cavs really would need to worry about the Knicks. Definitely wouldn't have to worry about the Nets. And the Wizards, I don't.
John, you're the professional sports anchor. Which team gives us the best narrative and the best storyline? Our round 1 matchup?
Well, the Quinn Snyder point that Sam just made, I think, is very interesting now, the coach of the Hawks, because that was Donovan Mitchell's coach in Utah. And if there's a coach out there that knows Donovan better than anybody, it's him. So I would probably say between, Miami and the Kevin Love connection, but the Atlanta connection, just because of Quinn Snyder and Donovan Mitchell, is very intriguing and probably hasn't been talked about much at all. And really hasn't, because he's only been the coach there for a short time here.
And they bounced us last year. Good point. Yep.
That adds just another wrinkle to it. So I think Atlanta, definitely, Chase, to answer your question.
not the Knicks with Mitchell and toying with them and not
Yeah,
happening
that
a
would
twist of fates.
That would be, I think, over talked. I think you talk about that after game one and then you're done. I mean, that is a storyline for sure. And especially the Knicks, being in the playoffs, they haven't gone to the playoffs much in the last 20 years. So that would actually be another side for New York, and then, playing at the Garden in New York would be a storyline. So, yeah, absolutely. Those three, Miami, New York, and Atlanta for sure.
Sam, which matchup would be best for Hoops Wire?
For Hoops Wire, probably the Knicks, because the New York media blows everything out of proportion and out of the water. But there certainly would be those stories involving Quinn Snyder and Donovan Mitchell, who Donovan absolutely loved. One of the things, I'll tell you this, that impressed me before Donovan Mitchell ever got to Cleveland, I thought, man, I really like that guy. Before he got to Cleveland, you remember when Quinn Snyder stepped down and Utah made it pretty clear, guess what? We're going to gut the roster. We're going to gut the team. We're going to, we traded Bogdanovich, traded Gobert, brought in a bunch of draft picks. And you know what Donovan Mitchell said? He said, I'm here. If this is what we're going to do, I'm committed to this franchise. They drafted me. I'm going to stay here and do the right thing, play for Will Hardy, who nobody's ever heard of as the first-year coach. I'm not looking to get out. And I just thought, in today's day, that's rare. You can't blame guys for wanting to get out of those situations. Sure. But the fact that he was, this is my job, this is my company, and I'm going to show up and go to work every day, regardless of who they put around me. I was very impressed with that. And then you see him in Cleveland and you're like, yeah, of course this guy said that because he's a good guy. But going back to your question, Chase, I think that, anything involving the New York and New York media is probably going to benefit Hoops Wire the most.
Yeah. I think the Hawks would be a lot of fun. My best friends in Atlanta. Not that's why that would be a lot of fun, but just last year, them bouncing us a Quinn. I mean, and then Ricky Rubio too was in Utah. I think that's great. The Knicks, I think with the Mitchell storyline, I just, we lost to the Knicks when we in New York last time we played them, which we probably should have won that game. And I think the Heat with Kevin Love. So I think we have a lot of really fun matchups. I mean, the Raptors, we owned the Raptors when LeBron played for the Cavs. And so I'm sure they're looking at us like, oh, let's go. Like, let's play the Cavs and we can try to give them some payback. So I think there's a lot of really fun matchups in the first round. And I'm really liking our chances. I have to say this because I talked about it at the beginning of the year. I said out of the first round is the expectation of where the Cavs would be. Sam, are you thinking like, at this point, we need to be out of the first round? Like that is not an exaggerated like expectation. Like right now, as it stands, 15 games left. Like, yes, we should be out of the first round.
Well, first of all, I'm trying to get over the fact that you just said your best friend lives in Atlanta. So that means it's neither John nor I.
Subtle shade, Sam. Subtle shade thrown.
Yeah. Best friend.
That cuts deep.
Secondly,
he's a breaker. He listens to the pod. I got to get him a shot.
Okay. All right. Good. Secondly, I think that it wouldn't necessarily be. It would be a disappointment. It wouldn't mean the season's a bust. If you put it this way, if you lost,
you just said that.
Hang on. Let me finish. Hang on. If they lost to the Knicks or the Hawks, then yeah, you would think, oh. I would think that the Cavs would be exasperated with that. Their fans would be disgusted. Those are teams you should beat in a 7-game series. If you lost to the Heat, I can't say that. Yeah, you definitely, without question, should beat the Heat in the first round. I just can't say that. That's a very good team, an experienced team, and Chase, so often we've seen throughout the course of history, experience wins in the playoffs. I'm not saying that's going to excuse it, but I'm just saying, okay, you lose to Jimmy Butler and Bam and Tyler Hero and those guys who have been there before, and Eric Spoelstra, who has coached in so many huge games. I mean, let's not forget, it's not just Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and Isaac Okoro who have never been to the playoffs, or Jared Allen, who has only been there once as a member of the Nets in 2019. But guys, how many games has JB Bickerstaff, playoff games, how many playoff games has JB Bickerstaff coached as a head coach in the NBA? So this was new to him too. These situations are new to him. These in-game situations and playoffs, managing a team would be new to him too. So I don't think that the season's a bust by any stretch. I think that, to me, the Cavs still need another transaction period, which is going to come this summer, before you can say without question, yes, they need to get out of the first round of playoffs. This isn't the transactions. The transactions they've made leading up to this are, to me, are not. You don't go from, our three of our core guys have never tasted the playoffs to, we better get to the second round. I just don't. I don't think that you can make that and be upset if a non-playoff team finally makes the playoffs. I just don't think you can say, well, they better get to the East semis, unless you add like Kevin Durant or something. I just don't. I don't think. You had a lot of fun.
More.
Chase, I know you're getting antsy, but you can't write off. There was a regular season full of fun. And, yes, it would be highly disappointing if they lost to the Knicks or the, Hawks or Nets or whatever. Yeah, it'd be highly disappointing if you lost to one of those teams. And it'd be disappointing if you got beat by the Heat. But at the same time, I don't think the expectation ever going into this season was, we have to get to the second round now that we have Donovan Mitchell. It's get these guys into the playoffs, because they haven't made it. They haven't tasted it. And it's a different game once you get there.
Sam,
go ahead.
I respect you.
No, you don't.
And I hear you. And I thank you for sharing your opinion. John, where are you at with all of that?
Well, I go back to what Kobe Altman said earlier in the year. Like I said before, I mean, the Cavs didn't put an expectation on anything. So even though they would love to and thought they'd go to the playoffs, and they are, I think a playoff series would be absolutely outstanding for them. It's going to be ahead of the curve in terms of what they were looking at doing. And experience is so key. Getting into a series, playing in a series, going on the road on the series. And if you win a series, that's absolutely outstanding. I would put them having a first round series as the best case scenario this year. And what if they go win the second round? Well, that just be just unreal. I'm not expecting them to, but if they do it, that's awesome too. I think if you look at getting in the playoffs, that's a checklist for them, because you need those guys that experience. But I kind of agree with Sam, but I kind of agree with you too, Chase, man. Like, I think if you win a first round series, you're pushing your trajectory of where this team will be a little ahead where they thought it was going to be. And to your point about JB Bickerstaff, Sam, you're thinking, well, how many games has he ever coached in the playoffs? I put up on Zoom here, I put up my hand here.
Both of us
0. Guess what? I was wrong. I just looked it up. Did you guys know that he's coached in 5 playoff games?
Grizzlies?
Was it the Rockets or Grizzlies?
The Rockets. He was the interim head coach 2015-16. Was that after they fired D'Antoni? Maybe.
Yeah.
2015-16. Has it been that long since they fired D'Antoni?
I'm trying to think who the coach was for Houston that year.
I don't know.
Gosh, I don't know.
But
I don't even remember.
He went 1-4.
Well, my
year.
ceiling just went up for the Cavs this season, if that's the case.
Yeah. Well, he was the
but okay,
interim head
look,
coach. He won 1 game and lost the other 4.
I understand in September, October, like when I said that was my expectation for the team, it was just based solely off of what they gave up for Mitchell and like what that meant for, like, this is the team you ride or die with for 3-4 years, and working backwards from that. That's where I got that. You got to get out of the first round. But now, as the 4 seed, with how we've played and who we could play, it is not hyperbole to say, like, we should expect a first round advance. Like, I don't think that's out of the realm of of possibility. And I think if we lose to the Hawks, to the Knicks, to the Raptors, to the Wizards, to the Heat, I'm going to be bummed and being like, what the heck? We're better than that, and we should have advanced.
By the way, I back to my point. It was Kevin McHale who was the head coach that year.
Oh, yeah,
he got fired after the Rockets started 4-7 and JB took it over. Sorry, Chase. Well, I don't think you're necessarily wrong, Chase, but it's just an added bonus if they get that far, You do have Donovan. You do have Donovan Mitchell, and Donovan Mitchell brings a lot of experience, and you expect to do great things. But you also have a bunch of other players on this team that's never done anything.
Yeah, I am not going to say that Chase is entirely wrong. If they lost to the Hawks or the Wizards or the Raptors or the Nets, that would be like, okay, that something went awry. And that should not happen. So you should have an expectation of being able to beat those teams that you're clearly better than. Miami would be, to me, the one exception. Like, that's the team that I'm like, yeah, they're an experienced team with great depth, great coaching, and they had an uneven regular season. And everybody knows if Miami gets their act together, they're going to be a scary playoff team. So. And then I would factor in, yeah, they have a ton of experience in the playoffs, and the Cavs don't. They have Donovan Mitchell. That's not to say it wouldn't be a disappointment, but I don't think that you need to go out and think, okay, we really got to rethink things if you lose to Miami. It's just, yeah, it's a disappointment. I always encourage fans that, Chase, I've said this since I started covering the Cavs years ago. The second best thing to me to winning a championship, other than, maybe getting to the finals and losing, to me, the second best thing is a regular season full of fun. And really, that's what the Cavs have done. If you're not going to win a championship, you want to have a regular season full of fun and promise. And I think that the Cavs have done that. Even a team like Philly, that's, their fans are probably like, when are we going to get to the finals? They keep getting close, and don't get there. They still have hope for the next season. What can we do to add that one piece to get over the top? And I think that the Cavs, their piece to get over the top, really, maybe some bench pieces, but more than anything is just getting in the playoffs and getting that experience. And taking the next logical steps next season. So, yeah, I see your point, Chase. You'd be disappointed, yeah, and you'd be like, well, that was a failure. But I just am choosing not to look at that because the regular season, or look at it that way because the regular season has been, for the most part, really good and really promising, and shows you only need a piece or two.
Yeah. Hey, Sam, you've been really good tonight, and you've been really promising.
That's good, because they normally don't say that about guys who are on the back nine. So I appreciate that.
No, guys, I love talking basketball with you. I don't care how wrong you both are. I really do like it. John, you're not as wrong as Sam tonight, but
that's rare.
Do I get my Junkyard Dog Award chain back because of that?
Of course. Yeah. Well, that does.
Sable's just buttering us up because he wants us to come back to his house, which we'll gladly do.
Yeah, I'm actually there right now. You don't know. It's so large. I'm somewhere there. You got to find me.
That's his bathroom.
This episode of Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Cavs on the Break. We always follow back. We always do. You can follow Sam on Twitter at Amico Hoops. Catch all of his works and writings at hoopswire.com and at Wire Hoops. You can follow Sabol, John, on Twitter at John_Sabol. And as we mentioned before, John, I got to give you the Junkyard Dog Award only because you said I'm not entirely all wrong. And you stuck up for some of my takes tonight. So, John, congratulations, Junkyard Dog Award. John Sabol, everybody.
Let's go. Woo! Love it. Hey, man, got to give credit when credit's due. I can't always praise Sam all the time.
Well, plus John has a fresh haircut.
John's looking good, as always.
Yeah. Oh, I noticed right away.
I thought it's because you were watching Fox 8 News.
Yeah. Well, last time I saw it, your hair was longer. So yes.
There you go.
Man. All right. Well, Sam, any final thoughts, man?
No, just these last few weeks should be a lot of fun, and I really think that it's going to come down to probably the final week or two before they really lock in the top 4 seed, and maybe it's a long shot, but maybe fight their way to that 3.
Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate you all for listening, and I got Sabol, you want to take us out tonight? You want to have Mike Breed take us out?
Mike Breed, take us out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.